More details are emerging about the military's frantic effort to scramble jet fighters to somehow stop the hijackers on Tuesday. Bob Orr tells us top-level officials were willing to sacrifice the lives of passengers to save lives on the ground.
8 minutes before American Airlines Flight 11 crashed into the World Trade Center, sources say an air traffic controller in Boston notified military officials the plane had been hijacked. 2 Air National Guard F-15s raced to New York, but the fighters were still 70 miles away when the second jetliner, United Airlines Flight 175, delivered the follow-up blow. 23 minutes later, the FAA warned air defense officials of a third hijacking. F-16s took off from a Virginia air base, but again arrived too late to stop American Airlines Flight 77 from plowing into the Pentagon. There was time, however, to answer the remaining threat, United Airlines Flight 93, and CBS News has been told the military was prepared to take an extraordinary action. As the fourth hijacked plane was flying over western Pennsylvania on a course for Washington, sources say military commanders, the FAA, and White House officials were on a conference call discussing options. At the time, there were 2 F-16s armed with air-to-air missiles within 60 miles of Flight 93, but the fighters were still out of missile range when the jetliner crashed. No decision had to be made, but administration officials now tell CBS News had the jetliner continued on towards the Capitol, the fighter jets would have shot it down. The rationale, say sources, was the government was willing to kill 100 to save 1,000. But even that was not the last threat on Tuesday. The FAA and military officials were also alarmed when a Korean Air jetliner inbound to Anchorage sent a radio signal that it too had been hijacked.
Before it got to Alaska, we had fighter aircraft on it. It eventually landed in a remote base in Canada.
That plane had not been hijacked, and there's been no explanation since as to why it was sending out the hijacking signal. But in light of what had already happened in New York City and in Washington, sources say that jetliner from Korea was in serious jeopardy of being shot down. John?
Bob Orr for us tonight from Washington.